Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful March the 3rd, 2021. Round of Deportes. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, today I was troubled by some puzzling thoughts as I was thinking back on the state of Texas opening up with no COVID restrictions, as well as the state of Mississippi opening up with no COVID restrictions. Charlton, you think about those two states just a week ago, they were frozen, and citizens of those states could not even keep themselves warm, and they still don't have running water in all of Texas, as well as in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And they're opening up those states, telling everybody to come down for spring break, get a tattoo and a case of COVID.
Yeah.
And they're going to have the All-Star game in Atlanta, which is one of those states that has been one of the most poorly vaccinated states in the country. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. They make sure they try to get vaccine in all the Americans' arms that they can.
Big C, very well said. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple. Everybody knows you got to stop pulling your mask off and listening to our politicians. I just wanted to try something a little bit different. Everybody knows that. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and he'll do it with his mask on, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV. You'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. You guys, please wear your mask. Wear your mask, wear your mask, Big C. I hope that all of our veterans are wearing their masks. We have a Veterans Crisis Hotline. We love giving it out. They're really there to help veterans and their loved ones going through help. Why should everybody care, Big C?
Well, Charlton, we're going through an important crisis time in America, but it's been an important crisis time for our American veterans for decades, Charlton. We lose some 24 a day to suicide, a very horrific number, and there seems to be no end in sight. I know we're talking about getting rid of COVID-19, Charlton. We have to find a way to get rid of suicide amongst our American veterans.
Yeah.
They suffer mentally, physically, and emotionally, Charlton, and that's something they should not have to go through. They should get the utmost of medical care from our government, Charlton, because they served our government in times of need and ask. And the government has not returned the favor for those great veterans that we have in this country. So it is an American issue, just like COVID-19, Charlton, is an American issue. And those veterans need all the help and service that they can get from our country and our citizens, Charlton.
I love giving out help. It's like a helpline for our veterans and their loved ones. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 if you're online. Simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. You can definitely get some help for yourselves and our veterans. Also, I'm very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run king, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country. Help putting people back to work just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams do it. Watch TV and real estate works for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772 8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of our loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. Also, I want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and just say it. Play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from anywhere in the world, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. You know, Big C, I was just thinking about what you had said earlier. We have the state that just froze people because they were trying to build a wall, Big C, to keep out brown-skinned people. They even had their senator get on an airplane, and you notice he flew higher than the wall was built. Big C, Ted Cruz, went down to Cancun, and now they're telling people, take off your mask, because people are mad at the government of Texas for allowing people to freeze to death. Now they're saying take off your mask, trying to deflect the blame. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's all it is. They're trying to deflect the blame from allowing its citizens to freeze, Charlton, and not having drinking water. Think about that. You're telling people they don't have to protect themselves against the pandemic, but they have to boil their water to drink it, Charlton, because it's unsanitary. So here's a state doing all it can to make its citizens ill. Think about that. Mississippi is the same way, Charlton. Jackson, Mississippi, the minorities community in Jackson, Mississippi, does not have running water over a week after the freeze. So when you think about those governors lifting the restrictions, saying, hey, go ahead on out there, and you don't have to practice social distancing, you don't have to wear a mask. Oh, by the way, there's no clean drinking water. So not only will you get sick from drinking the water in the city, Charlton, but now you're going to catch COVID-19.
Yeah, and you notice Senator Ted Cruz, he doesn't have to boil his water when he gets thirsty, Big C. It's all fair and love and war, but I really hope that people will listen, especially down in Mississippi. That is known, and people don't have to get upset about it. It's one of the worst educational states in the United States. Unfortunately,
it is last.
It
is worse. Well, it's last when it comes to education in the United States.
Well, it might be borderline with Texas, but I just want to make sure. I don't know what to say. I just don't believe in being putting my head in the sand. I hope that people, especially people of color, oftentimes they try to deny you of so many things: rights, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And now they're telling you it's okay to swim in shark-infested water, and it's okay to go around without a mask that the CDC still says you need, so that way you're not mad at them for letting you down in the big freeze, if that makes sense to you. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's all it is, Charlton. When you have a government that's trying to deflect from their neglect and ineptitude and ability to take care of their citizens, they say, okay, we'll just let you go out there and interact with everybody now. Even though you don't have clean water to drink, you don't have to worry about, protecting yourself against COVID-19. Oh, by the way, if you go to the hospital, we don't even have clean water in the hospital.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame, but that's why God allowed there to be Big C Sports Podcast. I really appreciate it. It's all fair and love and war. I got to just tell one story. Richard Pryor had a joke that back in the heyday, his wife came home early. He was on the sofa with a Playboy bunny, and he was doing his thing with a Playboy bunny, and his wife called him in and said, I can't believe, Richard, what you're doing to me, Richard. I can't believe you would do such a thing, Richard. And he said, what are you doing home so early? He tried to deflect things. It's all fair and love and war. I want to touch a little bit on the world of Black history. I'm telling you, we don't need Black History Month to talk about it. All life began on the African continent. You can Google it. Even the Jesuits know that, Big C. We identified the Black and Afro-Latino players who integrated all-white sports professional teams starting back in 1942. Pay attention to the number 42. The Chicago Studebaker Flyers, also known as the Chicago Studebakers, Big C, they were a Negro basketball league. Not a team, but a league, Big C, 1942 to 1943. Would you believe they were funded by the United Auto Workers and replaced by the George Hollis Chicago Bruins, who folded in 1942? Pay attention to the number 42, guys. During the 1942-1943 NBL season, the Studebakers and the Toledo Jim White Chevrolets, Big C, became the first team in the league to integrate. The Studebakers did so by signing 6 former Harlem Globetrotters, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, we all want to think, and we've been told throughout the history books, Charlton, that Jackie Robinson integrated sports, the professional white leagues in America. He did not, Charlton. This happened 5 years prior to him integrating baseball.
That's right.
So when we think about the advancement of black people in America and how they were able to assimilate into sports, and they'd been kept out for so many years because people understood how great athletes they were. And they did not have the ability to compete one-on-one against these athletes, Charlton, unless they created some type of barrier.
Yeah, there's always been a barrier, like the barrier that the people of Texas were helping POTUS, former POTUS, erstwhile POTUS, build a wall to keep out brown people. And then he gets on an airplane and flies down to where more brown people are. It's all fair and love and war. Pay attention to the number 42. November 25th, 1942. Sonny Broswell, Bernie Price, Hillary Brown, Duke Chamberlain, Big C, Tony Payton, and Rosie Hudson, Big C. Think about this, though some claim that the former Harlem Globetrotters experienced racism for their white teammates. It was Coach Johnny Jordan insisted that there is no strife, Big C, adding that all the blacks were treated as well by players and fans, and people knew the Harlem Globetrotters were great basketball players, Big C, but they were also well received, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I have a hard time believing that they were well received. I mean, every black athlete went with that racial vitriol, Charlton, during that era, whether they were a boxer, a baseball player, a basketball player, or a football player, Charlton. It was never an easy time for a black American during that time in America, just like today. And so they were all met with racial vitriol. You got to realize who was writing the paper during that time, making that statement.
Yeah, history is always told in the eyes of the person that sees it. God gave us all 2 eyes, gave us all 2 ears, and then 1 mouth to speak. And oftentimes, especially for African Americans, if you allow your history to be told from a Eurocentric perspective, you're always going to be ancillary. That's just the clue. A lot of things happen all over this world before people started telling you that we did not matter. It's all fair and love and war. But I want to just bounce one thought off you, Big C. I remember seeing the Harlem Globetrotters, and they were playing in the Jim Crow era. But they had this red, white, and blue uniforms. They didn't have the black and gold uniforms or the black and green uniforms. They had the red, white, and blue uniforms, and they performed during Jim Crow. I always thought that was odd that they entertained so many people in the nation's colors, but they didn't have all the rights of the nation, Big C. Your thoughts?
They could not sleep in the hotels, Charlton, in the cities where they performed, the high-end hotels. They had to go to the black hotels, Charlton. There was still segregation in America during that era. You might have cheered for them when they were on the court, but you did not cheer for them when they were out of their uniform.
Yeah, and they were, if you just look at that, they're the most celebrated basketball team in the history of the United States basketball, Big C. The most celebrated. It's not the Lakers, it's not the Celtics, it's the Harlem Globetrotters. They wore the nation's color, and they did not have the nation's rights and protections. It's all fair and love and war. I told you I had to read a lot when I was a young boy when I got in trouble, Big C. But it's all fair and love and war. I wish everybody nothing but the best. I want to take your thoughts to the world of NFL football, National Football League, which also could stand for Pseudo-Negro Football League, if that makes sense. They make up about 75% of the players. Teams that should blow it up, just an opinion, this offseason, rebuilding is a reality of life in the NFL, Big C. I think these teams, they should get ahead of the curve. And I don't want to say blow it up, because I know we got a lot of knuckleheads that followed the last administration. They should maybe change. Maybe they should change up. I don't want anyone saying that we incited any type of uprising. Don't blow it up. Change it up, if that makes sense to you. It's all fair, love, and war. But I give you your thoughts. The Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, they can't afford to stop now. Trading touchdown Carson Wentz, Big C. Remember when they traded him, they thought he was going to be a lightning rod for them. But they traded him to the Indianapolis Colts. It created a historic $33.8 million dead cap hit for the 2021 season. I think that slotting the Eagles to 31st in cap space at $40,500,000 in the red, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is a team that's going to have a difficult time, Charlton, signing free agents. They got to hope that they can hit the home run during the draft, Charlton, and bring in a lot of young players at the league's minimum, because teams don't always think that they're going to get off of a superstar quarterback.
That's right.
And that's what the Eagles did.
Yeah. Maybe they didn't. I mean, I've always I think Carson Wentz had his best football behind him, but that's just my opinion. It's all fair in love and war. It's amazing that the team that came from North Dakota State, they had their 39-game win streak snapped in the same year that the great Carson Wentz was traded. That's just a clue. It's all fair in love and war. The Eagles imploded in 2020 with a 4-win, 11-loss, and 1 tie record. Why does the NFL allow any team in any game to end in a tie, Big C? The NFC East that sent 7, think about this, a 7-win team to the playoffs. Head coach Doug Peterson, he's gone. And the rest of the division that figured to take a leap, Washington, the football team, they could stay in the playoff contention, and Dallas get Dak Prescott back, barring a mishap with the star quarterback's contract. The Eagles, meanwhile, Big C, they have one of the 12 oldest rosters in the NFL and a plethora of moves ahead to get back into the black, Big C. This is the right time for them to change everything up, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they really have to go in another direction, Charlton, other where they're going. They have a young quarterback who is not a big salary cap hit, so that weighs well for them, but they still have to bring in another veteran quarterback at least to be there with Hurts.
Yeah.
But this team has a lot of problems, Charlton, when you think about the veterans on their team. They were hurt, they were aging, and so it's not going to be an easy road with the Eagles for the next couple of years, and they also have a new head coach.
Yeah, I want to just take a little pause. There's a commercial with Rocket Mortgage, and they have a Tracy Morgan. He's an actor in the commercial, and he has these people saying, you want to be sure when you get your mortgage loan, and so he was telling people, he took them on a tour. He had some people, a family, jump out of an airplane, Big C, and they had a backpack on as opposed to a skydiving backpack, Big C. And the young girl said, are you sure? It's okay. Mine has a peanut butter jelly sandwich in it. And then they were trying to go over a bridge. And he said, I'm pretty sure we can make it. And they didn't make it across the bridge. It's all fair love and war. I think the Eagles should watch that commercial when they're starting to rebuild their team. I want to take it down to the Big Easy. Would you believe that we're having mayors from the city of New Orleans and the mayor from the city of Seattle, Washington? They're fighting over a black man. Where have you seen that before, Big C? I'll tell you. But the Saints, the March has arrived, and the New Orleans Saints still don't have an answer from quarterback touchdown Drew Brees. He has a $12.2 million cap hit in 2021. With a $22.7 million debt money, Big C. Right now, it's time to make sure you have the right kind of backpack on when you jump out of the plane, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Saints are one of those teams in total flux, Charlton. Drew Brees has restructured his contract. They don't know what he's going to do retiring-wise. There's talk of him going into television, but they need to get a decision from him real quick.
It's amazing how one man can hold the whole team hostage. And Deshaun Watson's been told, we're not letting you go anywhere. And Drew Brees will say, if I go, I ain't going to tell you now. I'll tell you when I feel like it. It's all fair love and war. But even worse, I think the front office has routinely issued Big C by shoving them the years in hopes of winning is Super Bowl with a touchdown Drew Brees. And if Drew Brees was going to ever win another touchdown, the league would not have allowed the Rams to get away with that interference call. Whatever happened in Minnesota when the defensive backs closed their eyes and the receiver caught the ball and ran it in for a touchdown. And then they had a push-off in another playoff game. And it's all fair in love and war, but I think his days are behind him. If he's going to win another Super Bowl, it's probably not going to be in New Orleans. Big C, that makes sense to you? Big C, your thoughts?
Drew Brees doesn't have the arm strength to play in the NFL anymore. That's the worst thing about a professional athlete. Your mind is always telling you want to accomplish something.
Yeah.
And your body is telling you, I can't get up off the couch.
You hope you're not thinking from experience. The Saints, they think about this. They sit last in cap space, $66,400,000 in the red. They have the oldest average age of any roster at 27.5 million, with 58 players, Big C, 58 under contract. That's a bad deal. Even worse, the front office has routinely skirted the cap issue, pushing things back with the touchdown Drew Brees. The Saints pick, think about this, the Saints picked 28th in the draft. That's not good when you're upside down and you're picking 20 out of 32 teams, Big C. So the best bet at Roman, in my opinion, remaining afloat, it might be re-signing Jameis Winston, because he did throw for 5,000 yards, and some people say, well, he had the interceptions. Cut down on the interceptions, you're back in the playoffs. If they keep Winston in the hopes that he can get some things positive out of the surrounding pieces, I think the Saints would do better keeping the guy that they got on the cheap. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Saints last year, Charlton, were the first team in NFL history to have two quarterbacks on the roster at the same time that had thrown for 5,000 yards in a single season.
Yeah.
I think that's the best move going forward with the Saints is to re-sign Jameis Winston, or at least try to, because you have a ready-made roster that he understands the offense, and they can move forward for the next couple of years.
Big C, that makes so much sense. It probably won't happen. Houston, Texans. Houston, do we have liftoff or do we not? It's time for the Houston Texans. Throw in the towel. You know what they said in the Rocky movie? Throw in the towel. It's all fair and level war, Big C. Touchdown to Deshaun Watson. He's not going to budge on his trade request because he's smart. He's not a dumb guy. If he was a dumb player, he might just do what they tell him. But he's too smart. He sees what's going on. He's not gonna judge unless somebody gets to him, if that makes sense to him. A star quarterback can affirm when met with a new head coach, David Culley, last week, that he just doesn't want to be there. He's already seen that Houston does not have liftoff. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he understands where his career is, Charlton. Houston has to understand what they want to do in the future. There's really not a trade spot unless you're looking at the New York Jets or the Miami Dolphins, somebody who can give you equity back in a trade, Charlton. But Houston, this is a lost franchise right now. Yeah,
when you don't trust people, then why even work with them? They can beg all they want, but if you don't trust them, why even hang around? Just go and find different pastures, greener pastures, if that makes sense to you. The silver lining is what Watson might fetch in a trade with multiple first-round picks, presumably on the table. In the front office made overtures to a team like the New York Jets, the Jets, Jets, Big C. Also, the number 2 pick would be at play, and the Texans don't promise to look competitive anyway, not after going 4-12. And they've gotten rid of 3 guys that were considered the best at their business in the league. And now they've already gotten rid of Watson because they weren't honest with him. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they gutted their roster, Charlton, on offense and defense. 2 of their top receivers are free agents. They just restructured the contract to David Johnson, the running back. Watson's gone on defense. Merciless may not be there, Charlton. One of the defensive backs are gone. So this is the team that really has to set the reset button. Yeah, they got to set the reset button, Big C. Another team that may want to set the reset button, and with all of Arthur Blank's money, I think Arthur Blank is probably the best-dressed pro sports team owner in the universe. The brother really always looks sharp. Big C is all fair and level war, but the Atlanta Falcons may be a good time for the Atlanta Falcons to punch the reset button. The Falcons are $15.9 million in the red, not bright as red as Arthur Blank's, that coat that he was wearing on the sidelines. I mean, you got a lot of confidence if you wear the red suit, Big C, but the $1 million red thing, think about this. They sit 28th in total cap space, Big C. They have the 7th oldest roster in the league. They have 39 players signed, Big C. A few players amplify those numbers. Think about their prodigal son that hasn't gotten it done for them since he came from the Jesuit school of Boston College. A few players amplify those numbers. Quarterback Matt Ryan, going on 36 years old, Big C. He has $40.9 million cap hit in 2021. And for what? You have touchdown Julio Jones is 32 years old. He has a $23.1 million cap hit. But this win now is produced 7 of 4 wins over the last 3 years, Big C. Your thoughts? Well, just those 2 players alone, Charlton, when you're talking about a $64 million cap hit with 2 players. Yep. The cap is only going to be $180 million this year coming up. So how much money do you have to spread around? They're already in the red, and they only have 39 players under contract. That means 14 more players you got to try to get in on that roster, Charlton, paying them nothing. Yeah, it's a lot like Arthur Blank's that red coat he wore down on the sideline, and it was when the Rams were playing, and they ended up knocking them out of the chance. I mean, it's all fair in love and war, Big C. The drafting the number 4 passer doesn't have to mean trading Ryan, but they should. But revamping the roster, otherwise to prepare for big spending around a rookie contract in 2022, it's going to be a tight budget. But Atlanta spent enough time with the project of Matt Ryan. He didn't win a national championship for Boston College, a Jesuit university, and he's not going to win a Super Bowl for the Atlanta Falcons. Big C, your thoughts? Well, they're not going to win anything in Atlanta. You think about the division they're in. They have Tampa Bay in the division, Super Bowl champ. They got New Orleans, a perennial conference champ, Charlton. So this is a team, as soon as they can, they need to realize that they have to prepare for the future because it's not going to be this year. Yeah, and if New Orleans is bright,
Stop fighting with the mayor of Seattle. Sign Jameis Winston. He threw for 5,000 yards. You worked on him and he got his eyes worked on, Big C. Now he knows the color jersey he should be throwing to. I think they have the gold right in the palm of their hands, but sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. Big C, I want to take you up to the Northeast. The city of steel, the steel curtain, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, they want to work something out with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger before the new league year starts March 17th. Whether that happens is hard to say. I think they should move on from Big Ben. He's 39 years old. He has a $41.3 million cap hit. If you bring him back, all it means is you got to keep looking for the quarterback you may draft next year. Why not just do it now, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you can still draft the quarterback, Charlton, but they have to work out a deal. That's $41 million that they don't have to spend on other players unless they rework this deal with Ben and then put it into a signing bonus and kick the money down the road, Charlton. But this franchise is stuck with him as a quarterback.
Yeah, they may be stuck with him as a quarterback, and they're also stuck with not making the playoffs if they're going to be fighting against Cleveland and also Baltimore with an immobile quarterback. It's all fair and love and war, but the Steelers are $7.3 million in the red. No clear path to re-signing free agents, Big C. Similar to teams like the New Orleans Saints. Years of pushing back cap money. Consequences, late-round draft picks, they leave little wiggle room for instant reloads, and that produce contention, Big C. I want to throw you this before we get up on the Big C pause. I think Jameis Winston, he has so much ability. Before he was dealing with eye issues, I think LASIK surgery is what he got, Big C. He's also been able to sit behind the quarterback in Drew Brees that everybody looks to as a touchdown leader passing-wise in the NFL. I mean, Brady's going to break his record. That's why Drew's not wanting to go away yet. But Drew, I mean, that's just my opinion. You got a young man who's had a chance to get his eyes work done and to sit back and learn how to read better defenses. The AFC North looks brutal with Baltimore and Cleveland as contenders. And Cincinnati's on the upswing with Joe Burrow, Big C. And they all have younger quarterbacks than Pittsburgh, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a major problem, Charles. But the biggest problem for Pittsburgh is that they have 8 former starters from last year that are free agents. And when you're in the red already, Charlton, over $7 million in the red, you don't have the cap space to sign any of those players. So you have to restructure Ben's contract. You can't afford to cut him, Charlton, because then you can't bring anybody back from the free agency market.
Yeah, he's going to do the restructure, and they'll figure out a way to do that for him. But whether they restructure or not, if he's on the field with the Steelers, I think they may miss the playoffs this year because I don't think they're going to be in the top 2 in that division. That division has a lot of young quarterbacks and good defenses, and it doesn't seem to be getting any worse anytime soon. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. When we come back, Big C, I can't believe that Texas says everybody's frozen, and maybe they think they froze the coronavirus too. People, wear your mask. Don't fall for the okey-doke. We'll take what's called the Big C pause. In the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps, and I really do appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can also, I want to say thank you to Xfinity, Comcast TV, and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up, and I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. Big C, I want to go back one more thought on what's happening in the world of NFL, especially talking about what's going on with the Steelers. You have the Ravens, the Browns, and also the Bengals. I know there was a time back in the 70s, I believe, when Bradshaw was injured, Joe Gilliam came on and he helped the Steelers win, I think, 11 games as a starter, and then Bradshaw got his groove back, and they went on, and the rest is history. They ended up winning another Super Bowl, Big C. But what I learned from that the Steelers may look at now, Big C, just because Bradshaw was injured and couldn't play it doesn't mean they were not grooming somebody to take over just in case. Maybe what can the Steelers learn from that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, there's nobody around, Charleston, other than some owners in the organization that remember those days. But that's always the key element in the NFL is that you have a solid backup quarterback who can step in at a moment's notice and run your system.
Yeah. I just thought about that because oftentimes you can't wait like Texas when everything freezes over and then tell people, hey, when COVID's over, if you can thaw out, you can go outside and play. They're also saying it's okay to swim in alligator-infested swamps down in Florida for people that are dumb enough to do that too. It's all fair in Leavenworth. Big C, I want to get into the thoughts on ranking the NFL's best pass rushing fronts after J.J. Watt's signing. You know, there's been so many great players. Castano did his thing, Mark Castano, for the New York Jets back in the day. The great Michael Strahan, Brett Favre, and he loved shaking hands on a football stadium. You know, Mean Joe Green, back in the day of the Steel Curtain, Big C. There were so many great players. Ed Too Tall Jones. I mean, I just think there's so many. Deacon Jones, maybe the most fierce pass rusher of all time. But going back into contemporary times, I want to throw some teams out there, and I just want to get your thoughts on who you think has the best pass rushing fronts after Arizona brought in J.J. Watt. That's a clue for the people down in Houston. Houston had liftoff. If I come in at number 10, the New Orleans Saints, they've been dominant every year the past couple of years, having one of the better defensive fronts. Give me your feeling on the New Orleans Saints, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, that defensive front down in New Orleans has gotten better each year, Charleston. I don't know why they would be ranked number 10. To me, they're a top 5 defensive pass rushing team, Charleston, even though they missed some players last year. But Jordan leads that group down there in New Orleans. But they're formidable opponents every Sunday. Yeah,
they're very – it's just an opinion. But number 9, I'm going to bring it to the Baltimore Ravens. I know they have so much illusion going on. Will Jackson run it? Will he pass it? Will he pull down when he run and pass on the same play? Oftentimes they'll run near the sideline and throw it downfield. He and Patrick Mahomes do the same thing. But on the defensive side, Baltimore, I'm going to put them at number 9. Give me your feeling on the Baltimore Ravens being among the best NFL pass rushing fronts. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is an organization ever since they've been in Baltimore, Charleston, built on that defense. They made some moves last year, getting Ncaa and Campbell, bringing them in as well as Quinn.
Yeah.
And they put pressure on the opposing offenses every game.
Yeah, they do bring a lot of pressure every game. I want to take you to the Mile High City, Big C, where everybody's high in Denver. Because of the altitude, of course, if that makes sense to you, only because of the altitude. I remember the Denver Broncos were always known for touchdown John Elway, Terrell Davis. They had the Sharp brother, Big C. They had so many great things, and then Manning came in there and did his thing. He won a Super Bowl when he had a broken foot. Or what was it, a neck? They put the cast on his foot, whatever doctor he was going to. But Denver, Von Miller, they have a really good pass rushing defense. I'm going to bring them in at number 8, and I want to get Big C's thoughts.
Well, as Miller can stay in town and recover from that ankle surgery he had that caused him to miss last season, Bradley Chubb, former Defensive Rookie of the Year on the other side, Charleston, 2 formidable ends in the NFL.
They're very formidable, Big C. I want to take it to the city of brotherly love where they booed Jesus. No, it wasn't Jesus. It was Santa Claus. But it's all the same religious tale, Big C. They booed Santa Claus, and he was praying to Jesus that they wouldn't boo him. It's all fair in Leavenworth, Big C. Philly might be in the NBA Finals this year. But on the defensive side of the NFL, there's something about the Philadelphia Eagles. Back in the day when they had the Minister of Defense, Reggie White, they were very solid. Give me your thought on Philadelphia coming in. And the number 7, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a team that spent a lot of time on the field last year because of their inept offense, Charleston. Their defense was solid. It was just their offense that could not score any points, and they'll be just as solid again on that side of the ball. A lot of big players returning.
Yeah, a lot of players returning. I want to bring you out to the Golden State, Big C, the Golden State, where they said they discovered gold. It's in Coloma, California, if that makes sense to you. The San Francisco 49ers. I go back to the days of Fred Dean, Big C. They had one of the best defenses for many, many moons, even though it was touchdown Joe Montana and touchdown Steve Young that got a lot of the praise. But there's something about their defensive pass rush over the last year before everyone got injured this season, Big C. I think if the 49ers get back in the saddle with their defense, they definitely rank up there as one of the top 6 defensive pass rushing teams, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I think this ranking has a lot to do from 2 years ago, Charlton, when they went to the Super Bowl. So they're going to have to get some of those players back. They're going to be without their former defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh. He's moved on to the Jets.
Yeah.
So can the new guy get these guys back up to speed?
Yeah, he's going to get them back up to speed. I'm sure he will. They're going to have a lot of good things lining up on their defense. They just need to get touchdown Watson to come out from Houston and have liftoff in San Francisco. Just tell them there's more gold. You don't need paper bags when you have gold, Big C. Give them the gold and let the brother come out to San Francisco and help them get back to the Super Bowl. I want to bring in number 5, still on the West Coast, Big C. LA's known for its expansive freeways and highways run everywhere, Big C, in the beautiful mountains and the Pacific Ocean, the city of angels, and all that brotherly love is actually magic is made in Los Angeles, if that makes sense to you. The Los Angeles Rams, they don't have Deacon Jones, Big C, but they do have some great defenders on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to put them at number 5 for now, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this team in Los Angeles, Charlton, will only go as far as their defensive line takes. And when Aaron Donald is healthy, it's hard to say that they're not the best.
Yeah, it's hard to say that they're not the best. He even played with some injuries. He had an injury in Seattle, and he was struggling in Green Bay, just couldn't make it work. But he still has a heart of a champion, Big C, a heart of a lion, if that makes sense to you. And I think they're going to be solid again this year. Bringing you down to the desert, where everything is hot. It's hot on Christmas in the Arizona, Big C. It's all fair and love and war, but they did just get better on the defensive side of the football by the number 99, the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to bring them in at number 4 for their pass rushing fronts after they just signed J.J. Watt. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're bringing J.J. Watt in to assist probably one of the best pass rushers in all the NFL, Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones has been in the top 3 in sacks in the NFL, Charlton, over the last 5 years. He only played the first 5 games of the season last year.
Yeah.
Because he had an injury that knocked him out for the remainder of the year, the pectoral. But he's had more sacks than J.J. Watt has had in the last 5 years, Charlton. So they should be a great compliment to each other playing the ends.
Yeah, and you don't have to be an every down player for J.J. coming in. I think Arizona just got better on defense. Big C, I'm going to take you back to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., on Pennsylvania Avenue. A lot of decisions made about what happens in this country from Pennsylvania Avenue. But the Washington football team, they have done so many things over the years. I really missed RFK Stadium. I know it was old and things were falling apart on it, so now they're at FedEx Field. They have a lot of changes over the last couple of years, not only changing the name, but changing the head coach. Their defense is legit. I'm going to bring them at number 3 so far, and they're only going to get better. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a team with 4 number 1 draft picks on the defensive line, Charlton. They can get after any quarterback in the league.
Yeah, they really can, and they proved it last year. They just need to get better, a lot better on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to talk about some offense because down in Tampa, the defending Super Bowl champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Big C, their second championship while they're in the city of Tampa Bay. I think we saw last year for the Super Bowl, in fact, back in February the 7th, that their defense does win championships, and they got a lot of people they got to re-sign, but defense looks pretty solid in Tampa if they can get people to stay. Big. So your thoughts?
Well, the Super Bowl spoke about it, Charlton, that if you have a defense, you can stop somebody regardless of how powerful that offense is. And Tampa Bay's front 7 got after Kansas City all Super Bowl night long.
All Super Bowl night long, Big C, holding them to 9. 9 points for that team. It's all fair and love and war. Big C, the number 1 team. I told you the steel curtain, and I ate a little bit of crow because when the Steelers were off to an 11-0 start, I was saying I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the steel curtain when they had all the good old boys that were doing their things, Big C, back in the 70s. But they have a solid defensive pass rush team, and I'm going to put the Steelers, at least right now, at number 1 as the NFL's best pass rushing fronts. Big C, your thoughts?
This is what the Steelers have always been about, defense, Charlton, and then led by a couple of great ends. When you think about Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt, Charlton, and they have some anchors in the middle, but they got to get Bud Dupree re-signed.
Yeah, they got to get him re-signed. And I love the commercial that Mean Joe Green did with the kid, and he gave the kid the kid gave him the Coca-Cola, and Mean Joe gave him his Coca-Cola, or someone gave a jersey and someone got a Coca-Cola, but they should have had the Big C burger. It is a tasty burger. It comes with exotic meats. It goes great with the Budweiser Zero. It has 0% alcohol, and it goes great with the Big C burger. So that's just my thought, Big C, ranking the best pass rushing fronts in the NFL. There's a lot of good things that are going to happen in NFL football this year. Hopefully, just hopefully, we will get some fans in the stadiums as science gets on top of the pandemic that we've had. Big C, I want to touch in the world of the NBA. We know we have the NBA All-Star Game coming up, and it's going to be on Sunday. It's going to be March the 7th. But I want to just get your thoughts on a couple of things in the NBA. The Utah Jazz, they are 27-8. That's a pretty solid record for Utah. I don't even know if they ever had a 27-8 start with John Stockton and Karl Malone back in the day. Phoenix Suns, no one would have ever thought that the Phoenix Suns would be 23-11 right now, Big C. The Los Angeles Lakers, they are 24-12. I think they're even resting LeBron James. They're going to play up at Northern California. The Sacramento Kings are going to rest King James, Big C. The Philadelphia 76ers, that's my pick to come out of the Eastern Conference for the NBA championship this year, Big C. They are 23-12. The Brooklyn Nets, they are 23-12 also. They're tied right now with Philadelphia. They'll most likely meet in the NBA Eastern Conference championship, just my opinion. And then the Milwaukee Bucks, they are 21-14. Taking a look at the top 7 teams in the NBA at the halfway mark, which team player would you put at the top of the NBA chase for the MVP this season, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, Charlton, going into the season, everybody said that LeBron James was on a mission about getting back to the championship game, Charlton, as well as winning an NBA MVP. And I think people kind of misconstrued what the MVP of the NBA means. You can be the best player in the league, Charlton, but it doesn't mean that you're the most valuable player in the league.
Yeah, but LeBron, because he's earned the right to sit at the table with anyone else, and he can hold up those 4 fingers and it has championship on it, he's always going to be in the talk of MVP, no matter how many guys come and go. He's been swatting flies like you know you swat mosquitoes, Big C? LeBron's been swatting flies, and now he's doing it with 4 fingers, if that makes sense to you. He'll probably finish with 5 or 6 championships before he decides to hang it up and get into acting.
But when you look at what Joel Embiid has done and what James Harden has done, Joel Embiid has his team at the top of the Eastern Conference of the NBA with that new coach, Doc Rivers, who understands how to get the most out of him. You look at James Harden basically averaging a triple-double since he's arrived in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But the most unsung player, Charlton, in this entire list would be Chris Paul. When you think about the Phoenix Suns roster, which is basically the same roster that they had last year, they would not have made the playoffs.
Yep.
Look at where they're sitting right now with the addition of Chris Paul. This is a guy who went to Oklahoma City last year, Charlton, had them the number 4 ranked team in the West in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Chris Paul, they were a non-playoff team prior to him arriving under Russell Westbrook. But he took that team on his back and made it a playoff team. Now when you look at the Phoenix Suns, they're the second best record right now in the NBA West.
Yeah.
With Chris Paul. He's been able to bring together all of that young talent, Charlton, under his mentorship as a player. I know the coach is doing a tremendous job. He should get some consideration for Coach of the Year.
Yep.
But you got to look at the job that Chris Paul has done, being unselfish, knowing how to get the most out of his teammates. He did it when he was with the Los Angeles Clippers, Charlton.
Yeah.
He did it when he was with the Houston Rockets. He did it when he was with the OK City Thunder. And now he's doing it with one of the best young rosters in the NBA down in Phoenix. You have to seriously consider giving him some MVP votes.
And I agree wholeheartedly. Chris Paul has always been, he's like Draymond Green in my opinion. I'm just a person looking at athletes, but I don't see Chris Paul taking time off. I think he challenges every time. He's a smaller guy compared to the NBA stature, Big C. He doesn't back down when someone's driving. He's always trying to get his paint, his hand in the wind, Big C. He doesn't stand around and watch someone get a layup. I mean, maybe he does every now and then, but I think he's so aggressive as an athlete. He has a mentality that reminds me so much of Draymond Green, and I definitely like his thoughts also for that consideration, even though I think it's going to be...
When you think about this, Charlton, there's not a lot of pure point guards in the NBA. You got guys saying that they're a point guard.
Yeah.
But when you look at what he does as a floor general, right, he's probably the best point guard in the NBA since Jason Kidd and the original Isaiah Thomas in the way that they played, and they orchestrated their offense and able to set up the defense with their teammates.
Yeah.
That's what when you talk about being an MVP, it's not about a guy leading the league in scoring. It's not about a guy, making the most spectacular dunks in a game. It's about a guy who can get the most out of his teammates.
Yeah.
And what is that team without him being there? That's what you have to look at. Look at Phoenix's record last year. Look at their record now. Look at the plus-minus ratio since Chris Paul has been on that team.
Yeah.
It's the greatest in the NBA this season.
No, he's very solid. You remind me of mentioning Jason Kidd. He helped Notre Dame, Alameda High School over in the Bay Area win 2 state championships back in the day. Went on to Cal Berkeley and helped Cal Berkeley get to the last Sweet 16 they've been to in many, many moons, and everything in the NBA has been all icing on the cake. I want to run over. In fact, I want to hit deep, right field, back to the wall, home run. I want to talk about Major League Baseball. Albert Pujols, Big C, and we could call him Albert Home Run Pujols, Big C. If he could keep playing, he could reach 700 career home runs, Big C. 700, Big C. That's a big number, 700 career home runs. Just 3 men have ever accomplished the feat in baseball history, and only 2 in the last 85 seasons, Big C. That's just phenomenal. To do that in the last 85 seasons, just 3 men, is the 700 home run club, Big C. The only members of that illustrious club is home run Hank Aaron, home run Babe Ruth, and home run Barry Bonds, Big C. Your thoughts?
I mean, Albert Pujols has had an illustrious career, Charlton. I would have loved if he had stayed in St. Louis and not had all the injuries that he's had since he's been with the California Angels, Charlton. If not for that, I mean, he's basically lost two years of playing in Major League Baseball. And when he was in St. Louis, this is a guy that was averaging about 38 home runs a year.
Yeah, every year.
Can you imagine if for those 2.5 years that he had not lost to injuries and been able to tack that number of home runs on, Charlton?
Yep.
We'd be talking about Albert Pujols in pursuit of 800 home runs.
Yeah. And St. Louis is known for Big Mac, what he did on the juke. And Albert was doing his thing, and he's still doing his thing. Now with the Los Angeles Angels, Big C, the slugger, home run Albert Pujols, he's sitting on 662 home runs, Big C. It's amazing when you think about it. If he gets close this year and has a legitimate chance to join the trio, think about it. He maybe to march on and keep playing past this season, I hope so, has a chance to be along with baseball's immortals. Something else I want to bring up. Pujols passed Willie Home Run Mays with 660 last season when it comes to home run, Big C. And that's 5th all-time on the home run list. Next up is home run Alex Rodriguez at 696 home runs, Big C, who retired before he could reach 700 home runs. That's a milestone. A-Rod should have come back and at least tried to get 4 more over the fence, Big C. Your thoughts?
I would have loved to have seen A-Rod cross that 700 threshold, Charlton, but he was racked with so much scandal that he just walked away from the game of baseball. But Albert Pujols realistically has a chance of getting there, Charlton. He's in the last year of the 10-year contract that he signed with the Angels, Charlton. So he has to have a decent year this year to get 20-plus home runs. And if he does that, Charlton, then he'll come back. He'll sign with another team, Charlton, take less money for an opportunity to reach that 700 threshold.
Yeah, 700 thresholds. I'm going to bring, we call Black History Day, so we don't just end it in the month of February as the Jesuits like a lot of people to do, Big C. But think about this. Anyone in the sports universe, when we talk about home run leaders, it's important. Maybe not important to everybody. Babe Ruth considered by many people to be African American. You can Google it. Hank Aaron, Hammerin' Hank, African American. You can Google that. Barry Bonds, African American, Big C. They're the 700 club. Think about Pujols, what he could do in the next 2 years. He's a man of color, Big C. A-Rod, another man of color. Could you imagine 5 men in the world of Major League Baseball? All men of color, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'm sad that they omitted Josh Gibson from that club.
That's right.
Josh Gibson is touted to have hit over 800 home runs.
That's right.
In the Negro League, Charlton, and had a career that was cut short, Charlton, because he was killed in an auto accident. He only played 14 seasons of Negro League baseball, but he hit over 800 home runs.
Yeah, and so with A-Rod, and you have Pujols, you have Bonds, Aaron, and Ruth, to have 5 men of color sitting at the top of Major League Baseball home run list. I mean, it's all fair and love and war. That's what I love following Big C Sports. I want to bring up something to you that I think is always, it's just something to think about when you talk about sports. You and I tend to brag a lot about what's going to happen if certain teams play each other, and I love the fact that when we get to sports, sports is something that brings people together. It's a billion-dollar industry, and everybody loves it. It doesn't matter if that's what you do for your pastime or not. Everybody tends to love sports for men and women. But would you believe in the world of football, and I don't necessarily agree with it, Washington football team, they're replacing cheerleaders with a dance squad of men and women. Now, to me, I'm not knocking anything. Women tend to do what they want to do, Big C. But do you think that women would like being cheerleaders for the fame? Or do they think it's a way to get into modeling? Or whatever it is. But think about what Washington is doing. Will other teams follow the example, getting rid of the scantily clad, just women only, allowing, cheering clubs? If that goes through, and they're going to do it in 2021, will teams like the Dallas Cowboys, the now Las Vegas Raiderettes, the 49ers, Gold Rush, the Lakers, the Lakerette cheerleaders, the Kings have the Gold Rush girls, and Golden State, their dance teams? Are we going to see more of these cheerleading squads that are co-ed as opposed to just women in scantily clad clothes? Big C, your thoughts?
No, this is a one-shot deal with the Washington football team that fans will lose interest in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know of many women that have been in beauty pageants, especially here in California, and a lot of people, they want to be known as the Miss Universe. A lot of women dress up to become the Miss Universe, Big C, and ironically, it opens up doors to other things in their career. So I'm not knocking that at all. But if for men, and we can sit down and look at and say, hey, we like that. But do you think that women really want to sit around and watch men dancing in front of them in scantily clad clothes? Big C, your thoughts?
No, Charlton, they won't be out there scantily clad. But like I said, this is a one-shot deal that everybody will lose interest in.
Yeah, well, not everybody, Big C. There'll be a lot of people that'll say they appreciate having people put their clothes on. I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen an all-star cheerleading team. Do women really want to see that? But maybe it has happened. I just really haven't paid that much attention to it. But I do know a lot of women don't want to be objectified. Or maybe some of them don't mind. They don't look at it that way. So it's all in the eye of the beholder. But I wish everybody the best, especially the Washington football team, trying to step forward and do more things with women's rights. Big C, I know to you and we kind of go back and forth about the college football thing. I like the Pac-12 because they've collectively won more conference championships than any other conference in the United States of America. NCAA college football, the Pac-12 schedule came out for 2021, Big C. I think they've been trying to expand the bowls, and it's going to happen maybe in the next couple of years. UCLA, they're going to bring in the LSU Tigers and Ed Orgeron to the Coliseum. Not the Coliseum, they're going to actually play at the Rose Bowl. And then Colorado, they're going to play their old conference rival, the Texas A&M Aggies. That's going to be probably at the stadium in Denver. Oregon's going to play Ohio State, and USC will play Notre Dame as well as BYU. But give me your thoughts. Are you a little bit nervous? LSU taking a chance to come out to Los Angeles and get eaten up by the Bruins? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think those host teams, Charleston, will be a little bit nervous because they're going to bring in real football teams to play against.
Well, I'm telling you, there's something going on. Chip Kelly has UCLA primed to be as good as they were when Troy Aikman was throwing touchdowns. Back in the day, they had DeMarco Farr and a lot of good old boys. Gaston Green running the football in the backfield for the UCLA Bruins back in the day. It's going to be a good year for football in Southern California. And I think when they do knock off the LSU Tigers, it's going to put to sleep a lot of that talk about how tough and powerful SEC football is. I really look forward to the return to glory for the UCLA Bruins. UCLA fight. Colorado and Texas A&M, I guess they missed each other when they were playing football back together. back in the Big 8 in the Southwest Conference. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the problem with those West Coast teams is they're going to be facing the physicality of those teams from the South and the Northwest, Charlton. And that's what they're not accustomed to. The big boys laying on them for 60 minutes.
No, they're not used to the big boys holding them and slow dancing with them for that many times. I still take it the last time Auburn was shut out at Jordan-Hare Stadium, it was a white horse. The USC Trojans beat them, and they shut them out 23-0 at Jordan-Hare, and that's the last time Auburn ever scheduled the USC Trojans to come back there and play football. But Colorado, Texas A&M should be good. Oregon has a game. They're slated to go to Ohio State and play in the Horseshoe. That game was canceled this year because of COVID-19. I'm telling you, Oregon, year in and year out, they've been good. They have a good recruiting class this year. To take their show on the road is a rematch of the 2015 National Championship game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, none of the players or coaches were around during that time when that game was played, but Ohio State has too much depth in the Horseshoe to worry about a West Coast team.
well, what's all fair 11 war? You sound a lot taller on the radio. That's what Jackie Gleason told this sheriff when they put him over Smoking the Bandit. I am noticing a trend when it comes to conference expansion. I know Notre Dame just did their thing this year down in the ACC. BYU is actually on the schedule for a couple of Pac-12 schools, and they're also going to play USC at the end of the year. Normally, USC, at the end of the year, they would have the game against UCLA or maybe Notre Dame. How did they sneak BYU into be their last game of 2021, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they saw that Zach Taylor, the quarterback, was gone, so they wanted to hopefully they had an easy opportunity.
Well, I doubt that's all fair 11 war, but it's all good to see college football at least trying to get back into the swing of things, especially on the West Coast, always looking for a chance to get their teams included in the college football championship games. Big C, before we close out on a beautiful March the 3rd, 2021, there's so many things in the world of sports, and would you believe the world's biggest sport, most popular sport, biggest global sport, based on analysis from the most popular sports in the universe, Big C? You got to look no further than soccer. The Association of Football is called soccer in most countries in Europe, whether it's Africa, even the United States. It's a dominant sport in Germany, in France, the UK, Italy, Brazil, Russia, Mexico, Spain, Turkey, the Netherlands, Nigeria, South Arabia, Poland, Thailand, Kenya, Argentina, Colombia. Big C, there's something about the world of soccer that made it more popular around the world, but not as much in the United States, Big C. Why is that, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, ironically, Charlton, there are more kids that play soccer in the United States than any other youth sport. So when you look at that, when you start the soccer teams at 5 or 6 years of age, Charlton, and they have these co-ed teams in the U.S., there are more little children in the United States that play soccer than there is football or baseball, because it's a non-contact sport and many parents have put it in there. When you look at professional soccer, Charlton, it is the number one sport in the world by far. The U.S. only dominates in football, but around the world, Charlton, everything else is second and third there.
Yes, second and third, Big C, in huge sports in China, Japan, South Korea, South Africa, Sweden, Kazakhstan, major sports in Australia, India, Canada. It's amazing how so many people play the game of soccer, but it's not on television as much in the United States. It's not hyped like football or basketball or even baseball. Soccer is the biggest global sport and the top 10 sport in all countries, measured as well as a dominant sport in South America, Europe, and Africa, just like big C sports all around the world. The World Cup final is watched by an estimated 600 million people. More than 200 countries take part in the World Cup qualifying. It has 5 of 10 of the world's highest attended leagues, and stars Messi and Ronaldo, the top 10 paid sportsmen. And people may not even think about that. The highest paid athlete in the world plays soccer, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton, it's known amongst sports enthusiasts where soccer stands on the world stage. The only reason people in America talk about football and basketball is because they're the primary sports that are broadcast in this country. But around the world, soccer teams and clubs, Charlton, are worth more than NFL and NBA teams when it comes to being able to purchase one of those organizations, Charlton. So what the U.S. has is secondary to what the world has.
Yeah, the world loves sports. It's a billion-dollar industry, and the boys and girls sports make up that billion-dollar industry. And I love, as Big C Sports, being a part of that billion-dollar industry. It's all fair and love and war. People down in Texas and Mississippi, even though they're telling you that you can take your mask off and take your clothes off and take your brain off and take everything off, just keep your mask on. Please keep listening to science and listening to doctors. I hope that everybody can get safe and stay safe coming up through this winter. It's hot in California, but it's still cold in different parts of the country. Everybody, please stay safe. Big C. Back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, young man, with all you've got to use. How can you lose, Big C? What are you looking forward to in this sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I heard you guys some tremors out there on the West Coast. I think it was the Lakers dropping teardrops that you guys call rain as they were sliding down in the losing bracket of the Western Conference.
Yeah.
But once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, doctors, and first responders. They're there to take care of all those wounds that the Lakers have.
They take care of all the wounds. It's actually, those wounds are covered up by 17 NBA World Championships. You could have championships too. All you got to do is rise and shine every Monday through Friday. Rise and shine at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As my mama always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child gone through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.